Ryan, thanks for joining me on our latest version of our Thought Leader Spotlight series. I'm your host, Matt Camp, the head of partnerships for DealMachine. On these, we really like to shine a spotlight on industry experts and these thought leaders to really hear about their story and help them educate our audience on lessons that they've learned over the years and trends they see happening today. So today, I'm here to welcome on Ryan Smith. I know you began your career in the Marine Corps for over 10 years, and now you've founded Lead Smith, which is a data-driven marketing company that really specializes in helping increase your ROI for real estate investors and for house flippers. So really excited today to have you kind of share some tips on things like list building, on things like in using data around that, on things like putting out great marketing that leads to ROI. But to begin with, I mean, I know I gave a brief introduction, but could you maybe tell us a little bit more about your story and how you really got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me, Matt. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started off wholesaling by myself. I was a one-man show, and the problem that I had was there was somebody else in my market that had a massive budget, a marketing budget compared to what I had. So I had to start getting pretty creative on how to find deals with less of a budget than what they had. And that I come from a data background. So using the data side, I was able to start finding deals that a lot of other people weren't finding when they were, going after these huge lists. So anyway, I did that for a while. Worked inside of a wholesaling company that done several hundred deals, and then now I have my own business doing marketing for other investors.
Nice. And I love that you have literally a data background right now. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's great.
it's fitting.
There you go. Sticking to theme. Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I think, in our previous conversations, you said that wholesaling in general has gotten more much more competitive over time. And it's something where we really need to create a better and more unique list and find ways to competition breeds people needing to step up their game. So where do you think real estate investors kind of go wrong when they start to build that initial list and start to do this?
Yeah, you bring up a great point. I think if you even go back, 4 or 5 years ago, you could buy a bulk list, you could mail it, fairly consistently, and even if you weren't that great, you could do deals on a regular basis. And these days there's a lot more people that are doing this, and you can't get the same ROI doing that as you have in the past. So what you really need to do is eliminate a lot of your marketing waste. And the way to do that is have unique lists. And a lot of if you can create those unique lists, you're getting in front of those people that not everybody's getting in front of. So I think that that's the key. And having a unique list these days is more important than it's ever been.
Yeah. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, that's very much what we're practicing and preaching on our end too, and using driving for dollars as a method to do that, where you're driving around, using DealMachine to help identify those distressed properties and market to those distressed properties that no one else has. Like, we can't pull that list. It's an original list that you and your driving team has validated with your own eyes and really, created a niche list that way. So yeah, definitely on the same page there.
Yeah.
Do with your data heavy and kind of intelligence heavy background like that, do you have any other strategies in terms of where how to build that niche list, where to get started, especially for newbies? I think would be particularly relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me caveat one little thing that you said. I think you brought up a great point. So with the driving for dollars aspect, I mean, there is no better way to create a unique list. I mean, that is going to be absolutely unique as it comes. I think one place where people fall short is they go in, they create the list, they do all this work to create it, and then they market to them 1-2 times, and then they stop. And, the magic is really going to be in a consistent marketing plan for an extended period of time. And that's really where the value is going to come. Agreed. And it's there's no reason to do all that work and then stop after 1 or 2 mailers or calls or whatever, however you're going to market to them. So I think that that's something that I've seen a lot of people do. And I think it's something that they could benefit if they shifted their perspective on that to kind of play the long game.
For sure.
So to answer your question, how to create unique lists. So what we do is we concentrate on a bunch of different niche, what we call niche type lists. And they're more based on events than anything. So there are things like, there's a huge list of them. There are things like divorce, pre-foreclosures, utility liens, water shutoff list, probates, inherited properties. The list goes on. But as far as creating a unique list like that, typically the best place to start is to check out your local county court records and see what is available there. What can you get access to online? Some of it you can get access online. Some of it you have to actually go down to the courthouse and pull manually. And then you kind of get off and you get to that point where you have the money time trade-off. So not everybody has the time to go down to the courthouse if that's what's required. But there's also services out there that sell some of that type of data as well. But I think that it makes sense spending a little more time on the front end these days, getting better data rather than just, take a shotgun approach and try to market to everybody in the city.
Yeah. And I do think where you said, the follow-up piece of that especially is extremely true from what we've seen. Like, I think that is the thing that's going to separate you from the competition. Like, yes, you need to build that unique list, but as you're doing that, as you're, driving around or creating that list initially, that's great that you're taking action. Like, that's, the place you got to start and can start building momentum that way. But you need to translate those into conversations and how that, with these property owners. And the way to do that is through consistent follow-up, like that specific, that specific strategy and that specific key point is really where we've tried to build DealMachine, is really to help understand, okay, how can you automate that? How can you scale that? How can you do consistent follow-up like that? So, definitely on the same page there too. And I think, beyond that, you had talked about, the idea of like this rule for sevens you mentioned to me in the past around effective follow-up and using direct mail and that type of thing. Can you maybe elaborate on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so there's marketing rule of sevens.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed at how many people aren't aware of it. So I think it's super important. If you look and they've done studies and they've looked at over the course of time, what the marketing rule of seven says, that in order for a potential client to even know that you exist, on average, you have to touch them 7 times with some type of message. So that could be 7 touches with direct mail. It could be 3 texts, 3 direct mail, 1 phone call. It doesn't really matter, but so you got to touch them 7 times for them to even know you exist. And if you look at, they've done studies and they've shown over time the number of deals, the percentage of your deals that come from the number of touches that you've done. And yeah, you'll get some deals after the first touch, second touch on some big list, but over 80% of the deals come at the sixth or 7th touch and beyond.
Yep.
So, so many people, they try something for a very short period of time. They don't give it a chance to take hold, and they quit when they've already kind of invested, all this time, money, and effort into this thing. I think that if you shift your mindset to, if I were to start a new marketing campaign today to a new list, my thought process going in is, hey, the first month, 2 months, something like that, I'm not expecting to get my money back. I'm paying my dues. I'm putting in the consistency. I know it's going to pay off on the back end, but I have to do those steps over time. And if you can go in there without saying like, hey, I just spent $100 on this mail and a week later you don't have $100 back. If you can get out of that mindset, then you'll win.
Yeah, I totally agree, Ryan. I mean, I think that for us, that, you know, the kind of the campaign feature that we'd built out was really for that reason of consistently staying top of mind. Because like you said, I mean, it truly is, no matter what you're selling, or no matter what, you know, no matter what you're trying to get in contact with someone about, that, you know, through a marketing message, it, you know, you see study after study where it's that 6, 7, 8 touch point range that your odds go dramatically up in terms of success rate. And, you know, I think the biggest mistakes that we see is people, if they don't take action, maybe they're not taking the consistent long-term action, where, like you said, you know, you initially get out those first couple touch points, which is great. Like, you want to get on their radar in any way you can. But for us, we're telling people like, hey, get on their radar and then put them on this drip campaign where they automatically get a postcard every month or every 45 days, or, you know, text them every once in a while, cold call through skip tracing, like those types of things through the app. Like, you know, if you can initially get on their radar and then stay top of mind for when they are ready, you'll be the first one they think of. You'll be the postcard on top of the pile. You'll be the one that's on, you know, hanging on their fridge. Like, you're the one that has been consistently building this relationship with them over time, or staying top of mind with them. So that way you're the first one they think of to call when their timing is right.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, one of the things that's good about you guys' system is you can set it and forget it. You don't have to constantly remember to send this list, and you can have stuff staggered, and it's perfect to do the right thing over and over and over again without you constantly having to do every single piece of the puzzle. You can just kind of put it on autopilot, and you guys take care of the rest.
Yeah. And I think, you know, in general, that's where, you know, people can, like I said, separate themselves. But I think we usually tell people, hey, have kind of those initial couple touch points clustered up front. So that way you can hopefully get in front of and make that impression. And yeah, we do see people, if they send out a postcard or two, we've seen plenty of deals come from that. You might get lucky in terms of timing, but, you know, from a numbers perspective, looking at the data, like, you're going to get way more success when you've been putting them on a long-term drip campaign and automate that over time, versus, you know, sending out a blast here or there and then hopefully, you know, something comes back, you know? So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You said too, I know you had a little bit of past experience with DealMachine. You know, do you have any tips on list building or marketing that you saw successful in that way, or you're just curious, you know, within the app itself?
Yeah, well, you know, my experience using it has been fantastic. I don't see a scenario where it can get any easier. You know, when I was working a W-2 job, I had a 1-hour lunch break, and the 1-hour lunch break had to be taken. It wasn't, you know, there wasn't the option to work 30 minutes of it and not. So during that hour lunch break, I'd go out, take the app out, and drive around and just add to my list. And, you know, every time you do that, I look at it as an investment. And, you know, I look at my list as an investment. And, you know, the list that I create through the app, through pulling stuff manually, through all these different things, is something that has a ton of value. I just have to get the value out of the list. So, you know, I think it's great that you can easily just, on a whim, you have your phone, you can go out there and, you know, grow a list wherever you are. And, you know, if you only have 5 minutes or you have an hour, it doesn't matter. You can just hop out there and do it.
Go for it.
And another cool thing about it is kind of the enterprise level setup that you guys have. And with that, you know, what we had a ton of different people that work for the company, and we could all connect them on the account, and they could all go out, drive for dollars. They could be incentivized to do so, where they get a bigger cut of the deal whenever a deal's done. And when it pops into the system, it's marked and say, hey, this is Susie's deal, or this is Ryan's deal, or whatever else. And it gets everybody involved. And, you know, you can easily create a big list that way in a short amount of time if you properly incentivize your people.
Yeah, I mean, I love the example of like going out on your lunch break and driving around just for a little bit when you have time here and there. I mean, we actually are launching a feature. By the time this video is live, it should be out. It's our planned route mode. So when you hit start drive, This is a brand new big feature we're coming out with where you can actually put in a list or say, hey, show me all properties nearby that are vacant or that are absentee owned or whatever the filter might be. And it'll actually tell you and say, hey, here's the fastest route to each of those properties. So that way, if you only have an hour, it'll tell you like, here's the best way to use your hour is to follow this GPS, and it'll tell you, go a fourth of a mile this way, a half mile that way, a tenth of a mile that way, and it'll guide you to each next property that fits your criteria.
Wow, that's awesome.
So yeah, so for anyone who's got the 1 hour lunch break here and there, hopefully you can use this as a way to maximize that time as well. But
yeah, no, that's awesome. I didn't know about that. That's a cool feature.
Yeah. So that one should be live by the time this is live. But
cool.
Yeah, my only other question, I know you're really big on looking at marketing ROI and really, tracking data that way. Do you have any advice for newbies on the systems they should be putting in place and how to think through how to track and optimize their marketing ROI?
Yeah. So a lot of people, when they're first starting out, they're like, I don't spend that much money on marketing right now. So it doesn't really make sense for me to track my KPIs. I'm just going to put money in it. I'm going to put time in it, and I'm going to see what comes out of the back end, which I understand. I like being quick to implement and quick to get going. Mm-hmm. But I think that a lot of people miss the boat with not tracking KPIs at the beginning. And here's why. When you start tracking KPIs, you're going to be able to start seeing, how many mailers do I have to send to get a phone call? How many phone calls does it take to get a lead? How many leads do I have to get to go on an appointment? How many appointments do I have to do to get a house under contract? Mm-hmm. And then how many contracts do I need to close a deal? So, once you start identifying those things, then how much activity you have to create in order to hit your goals. And, a lot of people that are newer, they do a deal a month. Let's say they finally get to the point where they do a deal a month. And then they decide, all right, well, I want to ramp this up and do 3 deals a month, but they don't really know like how to do it. They don't know how to mm-hmm. generate 3 deals a month. And if they had the correct KPIs, they could look back and say, well, it takes us 45 calls to get a deal. We need to make our phone ring 135 times to do 3. And having that level of clarity is huge. The other thing to kind of add on to that would be track dollars in versus dollars out. You put this much money into marketing, add it up over time. And what are you getting back out on the back end, and do it by marketing channel. Mm-hmm. So, hey, am I driving for dollars? The ROI on that's probably going to be a lot higher than the ROI on some other stuff. But you want to see how it all stacks up at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we actually are, we just launched recently a new dashboard as well that it's when you open the app, that dashboard will actually be an ROI calculator right on the spot too. Nice. So it'll say like, hey, how much profit per month are you aiming for? How much profit per deal do you typically, guesstimate? And then based on that, it'll say, okay, here's how many hours we recommend you driving. Here's how many leads we recommend you putting in. Here's how many marketing touch points we recommend you do to get to that threshold. And it'll actually calculate for you and say, okay, based on what you're going to spend with the app, with marketing, with hiring a driver, here's what you would expect in terms of ROI. So, I'm very much on the same page of how you think through putting together those metrics and setting goals accordingly.
Man, that's awesome. I love that you guys have that feature built in, because that's what it's all about. And, the biggest thing I see newer people struggle with is they underestimate the amount of work that they're going to have to do to get a deal. They make a list of, 50 people, and they're like, hey, I made a list of 50 people and I've only gotten 4 calls. And, they just need to, whatever you think you need to do, multiply it by 10 and work on doing that,
Yeah, I think 10X for sure. Yeah. So awesome. Well, Ryan, I appreciate your time. How can people get in touch with you or follow you online and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website, www.leadsmithre.com. Mm-hmm. It's leadsmithre.com. You can email me at ryan@leadsmithre.com as well.
Perfect. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate your perspective on this, and great talking again today.
Thanks, Matt. It was great chatting with you too, man. Thanks so much for having me.